They say love can break every barrier of language, instinct, even species. But sometimes, a single act of compassion can create a bond that no one could ever explain. This is the remarkable story of Lou, a gentle Labrador who became the unlikeliest mother in the animal kingdom. Her story began with heartbreak. 3 tiger cubs left abandoned and helpless, but what followed would leave the world in awe. It was a friendship that defied nature itself. And when fate reunited them years later, something happened that no one at the zoo could have imagined. What began as an accident soon turned into living proof that love, once given freely, never fades. Xi-ling, affectionately known as Jim, had always believed that kindness was humanity's greatest gift to the animal world. He wasn't simply a zookeeper or an expert. He was a protector of life in every form. For years, Jim studied wildlife behavior, learning not just how animals lived, but how they felt. He believed that every creature, no matter how big or small, deserved to be understood. When he secured a permanent role as an animal consultant at the local zoo, it felt like destiny. His job was demanding, overseeing diets, health, and social behavior for dozens of species. But Jim treated each responsibility as sacred. Even outside work, his passion never stopped. He volunteered with rescue groups, helped relocate injured wildlife, and spent his free time comforting the animals no one else had time for. One chilly morning, on his way to the zoo, Jim saw something that made him pull over instantly. A small, trembling Labrador puppy crouched beside a gutter. Her fur was soaked from the rain, her eyes wide with fear. Jim knelt beside her and whispered gently, "You're safe now." That simple promise changed both their lives. He named her Lou, a name short and warm, just like her. From that day on, Lou became his constant companion. She followed him everywhere, through early morning rounds, quiet office hours, and long walks around the enclosures. The zoo staff adored her. Visitors smiled whenever they saw the happy yellow dog trotting beside Jim like a loyal assistant. To Lou, the zoo was her playground, her home, and her family. She learned the routines, when the lions were fed, when the birds sang at sunrise, and when Jim would stop for his afternoon coffee. She seemed to understand everything, except one thing: why humans called her just a dog. Because Lou, in her own way, had a heart far bigger than anyone realized. 3 years after rescuing Lou, Jim's phone rang early one morning. It was a countryside wildlife agency, their voices urgent and trembling. "Jim," the caller said, "we found 3 tiger cubs. They're alive, but barely." For a second, Jim couldn't speak. Orphan tiger cubs were rare. Usually, only smaller animals like birds or foxes were abandoned. If their mother was gone, these cubs wouldn't last long. Without hesitation, Jim said, "Bring them to the zoo. We'll take them in." That evening, a van arrived carrying a small crate. Inside were 3 tiny tiger cubs, no bigger than house cats. Their fur was damp, their cries faint, their eyes barely open. The staff gathered around, whispering softly, moved by the sight. The vet began immediate care, warming them, feeding them, checking for infection. And right there, watching quietly from the corner, was Lou. Something in her changed the moment she saw them. Her tail lowered, her ears perked, and her breathing slowed. It was as if her instincts had suddenly awakened. When the vet finished, Lou inched forward. Jim hesitated, then nodded. She approached slowly, cautious but drawn in by something deep and ancient. She sniffed the cubs, whimpered softly, then lay down beside them. One of the cubs lifted its tiny head, stumbled forward, and pressed into her fur. Lou responded the only way she knew how. She began to lick them clean. The room fell silent. The tiger cubs nestled against her belly, comforted by her warmth, and within moments, all 3 had fallen asleep. It was one of those moments that defy logic, a domestic dog adopting the young of one of nature's fiercest predators. But to Lou, they were simply babies who needed her. From that day on, the zoo had a new family. Lou took her new role seriously. She guarded the cubs day and night, sleeping beside them, cleaning them, and even nudging their tiny paws when they wandered too far. Feeding time became a shared ritual. As the zookeepers brought milk bottles, Lou would wait patiently, watching every drop. Afterward, she'd lick their faces, as if checking that everyone had eaten. Jim often found himself stopping mid-work, just to watch. "She's teaching them love," he'd whisper. Over the next 3 months, the cubs grew stronger. They learned to climb, wrestle, and pounce, always under Lu's watchful eye. When they got too rough, she'd give a short bark, and they'd instantly calm down. Visitors began calling her the Tiger Mom. Her story spread beyond the zoo. Local papers wrote about the dog who raised tigers. And though she didn't understand the attention, Lu seemed proud. She would lie on her side, letting the cubs climb all over her, while cameras clicked from a distance. It was nature's most unexpected harmony, the gentle heart of a Labrador nurturing the wild spirit of tigers. But as the cubs grew, reality slowly returned. Their playful swats became heavier. Their small teeth turned sharp. Jim and the staff knew the moment was coming. The day Lu and her cubs would have to be separated. When it happened, Lu seemed to understand. She watched silently as the zookeepers led the young tigers to their new enclosure. Her tail didn't wag. She didn't bark. She simply sat, eyes steady, heart heavy. The cubs turned back several times, letting out soft growls that sounded almost like cries. For the next few days, Lu wandered the paths she once shared with them. She'd stop near their new enclosure, sit down, and watch. The cubs, now growing fast, would rush to the fence whenever she came by. They'd pace back and forth, chuffing softly, recognizing their mother's scent. Jim often stood nearby, quietly moved. He knew what few people ever saw, that animals, too, could feel loss, longing, and love. Time went on. The tigers adapted to their new life. Lu returned to her routines, but in her eyes, that tender spark of memory remained. 2 years passed peacefully, until one summer afternoon changed everything. Dark clouds gathered above the zoo. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and fear. Within minutes, the sky cracked open with thunder. A typhoon, stronger than any they had faced before, descended on the city. Trees bent and broke. Metal gates clanged in the wind. Jim and the zookeepers rushed to secure the animals. Doors slammed, alarms blared, rain flooded the walkways. In the chaos, no one noticed Lu had slipped away. She had always been terrified of storms. The lightning, the noise, they paralyzed her. Panicked, she darted across the flooded ground, searching for a dry place to hide. Blinded by rain, she leapt over a low, broken wall and landed inside the tiger enclosure. Jim spotted her seconds later. His heart froze. The grown tigers, massive, muscled, and unpredictable, began circling her. Their orange coats gleamed in the flashes of lightning. Lu crouched low, drenched and trembling, too afraid to move. "Lu!" Jim shouted, sprinting through the storm. He reached the gate, fumbling with the lock, ready to jump in. And then, something incredible happened. From the shadows at the back of the enclosure, 3 tigers stepped forward. Their eyes fixed on Lu, not with hunger, but recognition. They moved closer, placing themselves between her and the others. Jim stopped dead in his tracks. It was them, the cubs Lu had raised. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The rain softened, the thunder faded, and all that remained was the quiet pulse of memory. Lu lifted her head and let out a faint whimper. The 3 tigers chuffed softly, the same sound they made as cubs when they wanted comfort. One by one, they rubbed against her, lowering their heads like children greeting their mother. The other tigers, sensing something sacred, backed away and lay down. The storm raged on, but inside that enclosure, peace returned. Jim stood there, tears mixing with rain, unable to move. What he was seeing went beyond science, beyond instinct. It was love made visible. For the rest of the storm, the 3 tigers stayed close to Lu, forming a protective circle around her. When the winds finally eased and the sun peeked through the clouds, Lu slowly stood up. Jim called to her gently, voice shaking. "Lu, come here." She turned back toward the tigers, tail wagging faintly, as if to say goodbye once more. The tigers pressed their heads together, and for a brief moment, the bond they'd once shared years ago burned bright again. Then Lu walked away, leaving behind the family she had raised, now powerful, wild, and free. That day, everyone at the zoo witnessed something unforgettable, proof that love has no limits. Lu had once given her heart to 3 helpless cubs, expecting nothing in return. Years later, when fate put her in danger, that same love came back to protect her. It was a reunion that defied reason, a mother and her cubs, from 2 different worlds, still bound by something deeper than instinct. Jim often says that moment changed him forever. We spend our lives trying to teach animals, he reflected. But sometimes, they're the ones teaching us. And Lou, the little Labrador rescued from a rainy street, became living proof that compassion can rewrite nature's rules. Because love, real love, doesn't recognize species or strength. It just knows connection. What did you think of this incredible story? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe that love truly knows no boundaries, hit the like button and subscribe for more heart-touching stories from Animal Impressions. Until next time, remember, in every corner of nature, there's a story waiting to remind us what it means to care.